Good afternoon, everyone. I guess I should also say good morning and good evening, depending upon where you are joining us from. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It's a real pleasure, actually, to welcome you to Novacell's Q2 FY2026 quarterly update. My name is Colin Novick, and I have the privilege of serving as one of the co-CEOs of Novacell.
And I'm Jason Seeger, also co-CEO. Sorry, it's wonderful to have you all here with us today. We're excited to give you our update, with that, I'll hand it back over to Colin.
Yep, that's exactly right. This quarter actually has been a genuine turning point for us. Real momentum was made in the clinic. We had the important commercialization agreement in place in the United States, and clear and steady progress against every one of our FY2026 milestones.
So here's how we'll run today. We'll keep it to around 30 minutes for the presentation. Colin will start us off with our Q2 progress and the clinical update. I'll then take you through our new US commercialization partnership and what it means for our future. And Colin will close with our financials and the exciting road ahead.
Great. We're starting now first with a disclaimer portion, and this is before we dive in. It's just a quick note to let you know this contains our standard disclaimer regarding forward-looking statements. I'll let you read it at your leisure, but in short, we'll be sharing our plans and expectations today, and the actual results actually differ. With that, let's move on to the more important part of the presentation's content. You'll see, a slide depicting our development pipeline. But I want to say a little bit on the fact that we have three parts today. First, we're going to talk a little bit about our Q2 FY2026 progress. We'll then focus on our clinical developments and the exciting commercialization partnership that we have in place. We'll take a quick look at our Q2 P&L summary, and third, some key events that you can expect to look forward to for the remainder of FY2026. So let's start, again, with the big picture. This is our pipeline. Novacell is a regenerative medicine company, and every product you see here is built on our proprietary cell therapy platform. Every one of them is targeting approval in Europe, Japan, and the United States. That global ambition is core to who we are. Our lead program, ICEF15, targets urge fecal incontinence and is in an ongoing Japan, US, and Europe multi-regional phase 3 trial. Right behind it, ICS13 for stress urinary incontinence has completed a phase 2B and is preparing for phase 3. ICF16 is for passive fecal incontinence, and we're currently doing some large animal studies. We have an earlier program in dysphagia, a joint research project with Saga University that's preparing for preclinical proof of concept as we speak. So this is a genuine pipeline and not a single asset that we're talking about here. But as a portfolio, we're addressing heretofore underserved conditions that affect the quality of life of millions of people. And I'd like to zoom now into our lead program, ICF15, where the news is especially encouraging. This is a slide we're very proud to show you. We have now passed 90% of the target enrollment for our ongoing phase 3 trial. We're calling it the Fidelia study or the Fidelia trial. Our target is 290 patients, and as of August 5th, we've randomized 273. That's 94.1% of the planned enrollment, with just 17 patients to go. You can see within this same slide the geographic spread. Austria, Japan, and Spain are leading the charge, but we also have 135 other randomizations from other countries as well. The US FDA has cleared our IND, and this combination, near complete enrollment and the US clearance, puts us in a very strong position. So you may be asking, how do we go ahead and finish the job here? With the FDA's IND clearance disclosed on July the 3rd of this year, we can now include US sites and patients. We've closed recruitment in Europe and Japan, having reached already 94%, as I just mentioned previously, and we'll complete the enrollment by bringing in approximately 10 additional patients, give or take, at US sites. Our clear goal is to complete enrollment by the end of 2026, and that keeps us right on track towards marketing authorization, and it's a fantastic setup, actually, for a commercialization story that Jason is about to walk you through. And with that, Jason, over to you.
Thank you. And yes, Colin, as you mentioned, this is another exciting update that we have. I'm thrilled to share another significant milestone in Innovacel's history. We have concluded a product commercialization agreement, we're calling it PCA, with Eversana Life Science Services for the US market. Our board approved on July 23rd. This agreement covers ICF-15 for urge fecal incontinence in the United States, and it represents a genuinely new form of commercialization collaboration. Let me highlight three things. First, it's a new model, neither a traditional license out nor a costly in-house build out. Second, the economics are aligned. Eversana's service fees and royalties are tied to sales revenue, so our incentives point in exactly in the same direction. And third, and this is crucial, Innovacell retains 100% of the US product rights, our IP, our regulatory filings, and our pricing authority. We keep control of our own destiny. So who's Eversana and why are we so confident in them? Eversana is a global pharma commercialization service provider with proven scale. More than 20 companies have adopted their commercialization model, and over 40 products have been commercialized worldwide. This includes cell therapies as well. What makes them the right partner for us is that they offer integrated services across the entire commercialization journey, from regulatory filing readiness to market access and payer negotiations to sales and marketing field teams, patient services, specialty distribution, which is key for cell therapies such as ICF-15, and medical affairs. In other words, pretty much everything we need to launch ICF-15 successfully in the US available from day one without having to build it all from scratch. And the results speak for themselves. Based on Eversana's research, companies using Eversana's services are able to expect over a 20% cut in commercialization preparation costs versus building out everything in-house. They've achieved faster and broader reach to healthcare professionals and institutions. And they've delivered revenue above the business plans developed with their partners. Lower costs, faster and broader reach, and stronger revenue generation, that is precisely what Innovacell needs at this stage. Let me contrast this with the traditional path. In conventional licensing out arrangements, you hand commercialization rights to a third party. The licensee books the top line sales, you receive only a low percentage royalty, and you have limited control after the deal. The one upside is that your own costs are minimized. Our hybrid model with Eversana is fundamentally different. We retain 100% of commercialization rights, IP, and pricing. ICF-15 revenue sits on Innovacell's top line. We pay Eversana a service fee plus a royalty tied to sales. Decisions run through a joint management committee where Innovacell holds the casting vote. And we still leverage Eversana's platform to reduce our initial investment. It's the best of both worlds, control and capital efficiency. For those who love the mechanics, here's how the economics reinforce the alignment of incentives in three parts. One, fees are paid based on services actually performed. The signing of the PCA itself triggers no payment, and work is authorized through that joint management committee where we hold the casting vote. So costs scale in lockstep with our choices. Two, part of Eversana's fees are deferred, interest-free, and repaid from future net sales, which lowers our pre-revenue cash burden and directly links the receipt of their fees to actual sales. And three, a low single-digit royalty on net sales means Eversana shares the upside with us, proportional to the value they create. The bottom line, we share risk and reward, and our economic incentives are fully aligned. This is a true win-win for both Innovacell and Eversana. For Innovacell, we retain full US rights and assets, recognize revenue directly on our top line, expect a higher margin than an out-licensing model, and enjoy lower upfront investment with immediate US readiness. For Eversana, further validates their established cell and gene therapy track record, brings in new partner deploying their complete commercialization model, and gives them a balanced mix of fee for service and royalty revenue. And for both of us, it creates a reference case for this hybrid model and a platform for a long-term strategic partnership. When incentives are this well aligned, everybody is pulling towards the same goal, making ICF-15 a success. Now let me show you how our development and commercialization will advance in parallel, because we're not waiting for one to finish before starting the other. On the clinical side of the phase 3 trial, Patient enrollment is targeted for completion by the end of 2026, a 1-year follow-up per patient through the end of 2027, and the clinical study report compiled across all 290 patients by around mid-2028, all leading into our marketing authorization application and ultimately marketing authorization. And running alongside that right now, we're building global commercial capabilities. In the US, our agreement with Eversana was signed on July 23rd. In Japan and Europe, partnerships are under negotiation. By the time we're ready to launch, the commercial engine should be ready, already built. ICF-15 is our lead, but it's far from our only story. ICF-16, targeting passive fecal incontinence, is preparing for its first in-human phase 1/2 trial, with preclinical studies ongoing. And ICS-13 for stress urinary incontinence has already completed phase 2 trials in Europe and is now preparing for phase 3, a global phase 3 clinical trial. So as ICF-15 moves into commercialization preparation, our next programs are steadily advancing behind it. This is how we build a durable, multi-product company with a pipeline that keeps delivering. And we're thinking even bigger than our current pipeline. This slide represents our global aggregation model, the strategy for how we grow beyond what you've seen so far. We will leverage our management resources to source, develop, and commercialize promising product candidates from across the globe. We will essentially be looking at assets that we could potentially acquire and licensing in assets that we could potentially license in to further augment our portfolio.
Thanks so much, Jason. I'd like to just focus a little bit now on some other publications that we've made up until this point. I understand that this may sound biased coming from us, but we truly believe this to be an exciting partnership with Eversana. And let me just round out our progress again with a few other highlights from this quarter. One is on basic research. Saga University presented our joint research results at the 127th annual meeting of the Japanese Society for Otorhinolaryngology. That's a very hard word to say in English. Head and neck surgery, disclosed on June 18th. On the intellectual property front, we announced the registration of in Japan of a pharmaceutical composition patent related to myoblasts for the treatment of anal and fecal incontinence, disclosed on June 9th. This basically strengthens the protection around our core technology. And more broadly, we stayed highly active in our communication with the market, issuing 14 news releases in Japanese and 12 in English during this period. Transparency and steady disclosure remain important to us, and they will remain to be important to us moving forward as well. This brings us to the second part of our agenda, a brief look at our Q2 FY2026 profit and loss summary. As you expect for a clinical stage company at this point in its journey, we're investing heavily ahead of our revenue generation. And I'm pleased to report that our overall consolidated expenses came in right in line with our full year forecast. Operating revenue for the quarter was 16 million JPY, payment for some contract manufacturing that we conducted earlier this year. The bulk of this year's revenue, however, pertains to upfront revenue from the planned ICF-15 Japan co-promotion partnership, which is expected in Q4 of this fiscal year. Operating profit, ordinary profit, and net income are tracking at roughly 43 to 47% of the full year forecast. In other words, it's a well-controlled development, and it's also on plan. I'd also note that our ordinary and net figures include a one-time IPO-related expense of around 70 million JPY recorded in non-operating expenses. So the headline is simple: disciplined spending. We're on budget with our key revenue events still ahead of us this year. Which brings me to another part I'm extremely excited about, the key events that were expected through the rest of FY2026. Here's what to watch for. On ICF-15, or I should say on the ICF-15 front, in the multi-regional phase 3 study that we're calling the Fidelia study, we've already announced the inclusion of the United States. You'll see the little check point next to the bullet there. And we're looking to commence recruitment for US sites in the coming months. In line with this push, we also drive towards our last patient in for the Fidelia study. On commercialization, we've already executed the definitive agreement in the United States, as Jason alluded to earlier, with Eversana. And we're working towards definitive agreements with a partner in the EU and a co-promotion partner in Japan, the latter carrying the associated upfront payment that I alluded to on the previous slide. And on ICF-16 front, our treatment for passive incontinence, we expect to initiate a first-in-human phase 1/2 clinical trial, making it our third pipeline product in clinical development. The message on this slide says it best. Our FY2026 milestones are being steadily achieved as planned. We are executing quarter after quarter, and we look to continue to do so in the quarters to come. So to bring it all together, strong clinical momentum with ICF-15 enrollment at over 90%, a landmark U.S. commercialization partnership with Eversana, an advancing pipeline behind it, and financials right on plan.
Thank you all so much for your time and your continued support and belief in Novacell. We're genuinely energized about what lies ahead, and we can't wait to share the next chapter with you. We'd now be delighted to take your questions. It looks like some of the questions are coming in. Let's see.
I'll take the first one. You read it out to me.
Yeah, okay. So first question, please describe the characteristics and strengths of your company's business model compared to other Japanese cell therapy biotechs. Who is considered to be the best comp of the Novacell?
It's a good question.
Good question.
Interestingly, we spent quite a lot of time actually trying to dig into the answer to this very question. And the short answer is there isn't a great comp that matches us, every brushstroke of the way. There are a number who kind of match us in terms of clinical development stage. There are also that are looking to match us when it comes to the jurisdictional breadth that we're undertaking. But some of these are actually not located actually as TSE listed companies. I would say that if you're looking to define a peer group for us on the TSE, you're probably talking about companies such as Qorips, Heartseed, Sunbio, Helios, clinical stage companies that are listed on the TSE that have cell therapy and regenerative medicine products currently in development. Some of them actually have commercial conditional approval as well. If, however, you take a broader look and try to find, okay, who's out there that has an autologous cell therapy that is in a phase 3 study, confirmatory stage, that actually is looking to commercialize at roughly the same time that we are. Our closest comp actually is a NASDAQ-listed company called ProKidney. ProKidney, if I'm not mistaken, is developing a product for chronic kidney disease, which again is autologous, and they're developing it, I think, in the U.S. alone. Again, their target for revenue generation is roughly on par with our target. They are a phase 3 asset. They also are autologous. So we're probably talking in terms of closest analogous company with a product akin to ours, that's probably the closest. Other companies that you may want to take a look at outside of Japan would probably be Mesoblast. Their steroid refractory acute GmbH product, Temcel, would be something that would be probably closest to us.
All right, yeah. Shall we go to the next question? Let's see. I guess we could do this one first,
sure.
Or this one, and then I answer it.
Yeah, okay, then I'll read that one.
Yeah.
You may have already figured this out, but anything that has something to do with clinical development, I'll be answering. Anything to do with commercial development and business development, Jason will be answering. But this question,
anything in between, we'll just juggle.
Yeah. Please provide an update on the status of ICF-15 commercialization preparations in Japan and Europe. Who will be the sales and marketing partner in Japan and in Europe? Will it be a pharma company? Will it be a company like Eversana or something else?
Okay. Yeah, interesting question. Let me talk about Europe first, and then I'll move on to Japan. So we are talking to a company in Europe. I will refrain from talking about what type of company it is for now, but we are looking to sign an agreement with them relatively soon. I hope we can, sign it within this quarter. that we're in right now. So please look forward to that. We believe that this partner is a great partner, just like the U.S. for us. So you can read into that as you will, but that's where we are with Europe. And Europe's a large geographic area. There's many countries in Europe. Eventually, we might have several partners to cover the entirety of Europe, but we'll know more as we move forward. With respect to Japan, we are in discussions with 3 pharmaceutical firms. The arrangement will most likely be a co-promotion arrangement, so it's slightly different from the contract that we have with Eversana in the US. However, there are similarities whereby we will be the marketing authorization holder in Japan. We will have control over a lot of the management decisions that occur for the Japanese market, and we are essentially looking to choose the best partner amongst those 3 companies from a number of different aspects. One is, which company is able to provide us with the most economic sense, which company has the best capabilities to sell and market ICF-15, and which company we believe we can work together with, and that we'll be comfortable with, basically. So we're going to be choosing amongst those 3. Hopefully, we'll be able to choose within the next several months and announce that. I think that answers that question.
I do too.
Okay. All right. Moving on. Let's do this one. So you can answer this, Colin, maybe.
Yeah.
Please tell us what you consider to be ICF-15's greatest strengths for widespread adoption and how it differs from preceding / competing treatments.
Got it. Well, to be able to answer this question, it's probably a good idea to very briefly explain the treatment algorithm that is broadly similar across Japan, Europe, and the US. You start off with conservative treatments, you move on into specialized conservative treatments, and then you move on into surgical treatment options. Conservative treatments include constipation-inducing agents, lifestyle adjustments, various different types of training regimens as well. If that doesn't work, you move on to specialized treatment options, and those include pelvic floor muscle training. In some jurisdictions, that also includes pelvic floor electrical stimulation. It also includes plugs and what have you. Then you move on into surgical treatment options if you are unable to get sufficient relief from those first 2 categories of treatments. I should also mention to our listeners today that fecal incontinence isn't a you do this, and if that doesn't work, you move on to this. Oftentimes, patients will have a combination of various different types of treatments. So they could be even after taking surgical options, they could still be on some specialized conservative treatments as well. So when you're talking about now the surgical options, the first-line treatment options under the surgical option category include sacral neuromodulation, which is a repurposed pacemaker. You implant the pacemaker in and around your hip, and then you connect the electrical lead to the sacral nerve, and that provides the patient with some relief as well. The other treatment option there for first-line surgical options is what's known as sphincteroplasty. It's what the name sounds like. You take the sphincter, cut out the damaged portion, sew it back together. The diameter is shorter, and for a while, I think there's a recidivism roughly 50% of the time for patients who undergo this surgery by around 3 to 5 years. Where we are actually going to be positioned, this is actually mentioned in the Japanese Society for Coloproctology's treatment guideline for fecal incontinence, the 2nd edition, which was published in November of 2024, states quite clearly in the chapter, and the chapter for surgery, that because fecal incontinence is a indication that's not life-threatening, the treatment options should be chosen from the least invasive to the most invasive. in that methodology. So we will be categorized alongside other surgical treatment options because we will be considered a surgery, but we will also be the least invasive surgery. So when you're talking about the limitations for existing surgical treatment options, the highly invasive nature of said surgical treatment options, they involve scalpels, will be something that we'll be able to kind of provide patients with some modicum of hope. And we should also mention that, while we will be positioned after the specialized conservative treatments, in the research that we've conducted to date, it seems to be quite a frequent occurrence that a lot of patients who are actually currently receiving specialized conservative treatment and or just regular conservative treatment should be moving on to surgical treatment options, but they hesitate because of the invasive nature that said surgical options basically present. So, where we believe the important part for us to basically address early on post-commercialization of our product will be those patients who are ready to proceed to surgical treatment options, but are not willing to go because of the invasive nature of the existing options. And then also those patients who currently are willing to go when they're presented with, say, for instance, a product such as ourselves, which does not involve an implantation of a medical device or a scalpel. It's just an injection into the external anal sphincter, will probably view our product as the more preferable first treatment option before they move on to some of these other treatment options. So, that's what we believe, is one of our greatest strengths as per adoption. We'll obviously need to work in close coordination with Eversana to make sure that we relay those strengths to the doctors and treating physicians and sites in the United States, and similar to that in Europe and eventually in Japan as well.
Okay. Should we go on to the next one?
Sure. These next couple look to be pretty kind of business development. So I'll read them up.
Yeah, go to the front from the top.
Yep.
Yeah.
Will ICF-15 be covered by insurance? Will the reimbursement price be set at a level that allows for a sufficient profit margin? Loaded question.
Yeah, loaded question. Very important one, by the way. So the short answer to both of those questions is two-pronged. Yes and yes. We do believe that the product will be reimbursed by health insurance. In Japan, it will be national health insurance. In the US, it will be, the insurance companies. We have done quite extensive research on this, including specialists who basically specialize in pricing products such as ICF-15. So we're confident with that it'll be reimbursed. And in terms of, will we be able to make sufficient profit margin? Yes, again. In Japan, the way the product will be priced will be a cost plus method. And so our COGS, I should say, are quite well managed, we believe. We've been operating our own GMP manufacturing facility that we have in Innsbruck, Austria for over 20 years now. Or no, close to 20 years now.
Just coming up to 20.
Yeah. And throughout those 20 years, we've been able to chip away on the COGS and increase efficiency. So, we have been able to manage our COGS quite well while adhering to GMP manufacturing standards and regulations. And so based on that, as well as the fact that the market size that we're looking at is quite large, we do believe that the reimbursement price that we can obtain in Japan will allow us for a healthy margin of profit. When you talk about COGS for the manufacturing of cell therapies, and you break down the cost between fixed cost and variable cost, the amount of the percentage of fixed cost is usually quite high. And so in order to be able to run a profitable business for cell therapies, it actually helps a lot to have a certain amount of volume, post commercialization. And with the market size that we're looking at for ICF-15, we believe that that is achievable. And similarly for the US and Europe, while the pricing, the method of obtaining a reimbursement price is different from Japan, we do believe that in the US, we've already talked to a number of payers in Japan, and the feedback that we've received indicates that the reimbursement price that we can expect is healthy enough for a profit margin for us. And in Europe as well, we do see a strategy that could bring us forward to discuss with payers that will allow us to be profitable.
Would it be too much to say, I certainly believe this is the case, but the fact that Eversana teamed up with us leads us to believe that they also believe that there is ample profit to be had.
Yes, they actually did some research on ICF-15 and the space in the U.S. And Europe for that matter for us, and their feedback was similar to what I just described to you.
Great. I'm glad you didn't delve into the estimated market size because as it turns out, that's our next question.
That's our next question. Yeah.
Please provide the estimated market size, number of patients for ICF-15 in Japan, US and Europe respectively.
Okay, yes. So the number of patients and what we've done, extensive research on this in Japan and the US as well as Europe. We've used some of the Japanese and US data to augment the research that we did in Europe to see a more precise picture in Europe. But if you look at the number of patients, we do have that information here. Hold on really quickly. So in Japan, we're looking at 120,000 patients that will be eligible for ICF-15. In the US, it's a lot larger, around 320,000 patients. And in Europe, Big Five, we're looking at 430,000 patients. Now, the reimbursement price that we talked about, like if we take a benchmark, which is I think the sort of like closest benchmark and honestly most conservative benchmark that is GI, kind of like gastrointestinal related, would be Alofisel. And the price point for Alofisel differs between Japan and Europe. It was approved in Japan and Europe, wasn't approved in the US. So we have Japan and Europe. Japan's reimbursement price was roughly 5.6 million Japanese yen. And in Europe, it was 54,000 euros. So if you take those, convert the 54,000 euros to Japanese yen, you basically come up with a range. And then we have a penetration rate. So if you're looking at sort of like the market size, and I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but we're looking at quite a healthy market size. I think I saw, we're talking about peak sales, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. So talking about peak sales, if we're looking at a penetration rate of around 10% in Japan, US, and Europe. And so if you take 120,000 times 10% times the reimbursement price, that range, in Japan, we're looking at anywhere between 70 to 120 billion JPY. In the US, anywhere between 180 to 310 billion JPY. And in Europe, 240 to 420 billion JPY. So, quite a large market to expect in terms of peak sales.
Yep. We'll move on now to the next question, which is pertaining to our global aggregation model. Jason, you probably need to take this one as well.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Please explain your company's M&A strategy in the context of the announced global aggregation model. Has there been any progress on this strategy?
Yeah. So our global aggregation model, there's a couple reasons why we believe we are a company that are well positioned to execute on this sort of strategy. One is we are, pretty much a global company already. We don't have a US subsidiary yet, but we will have one soon. We have a presence in Japan and Europe. We are capable of developing products globally. We already have a track record of that right now. And moving forward, we'll have some commercial capabilities as well, with the help of Eversana and our future partners in Japan and Europe. So that coupled with the fact that there are quite a lot of interesting and good potential technologies that are struggling and are undervalued we've seen a lot of that in Japan. You see those in Europe and the US as well, but especially in Japan, I believe. The market situation and climate for biotechs is quite challenging for a lot of these biotechs. And the reality is that there's a lot of biotechs that have good technology, but they're not able to raise enough money, so they develop their products only in one jurisdiction. They aren't able to really capitalize and speed up their products fast enough, and they run the risk of running out of cash. And so we believe that if we identify the right technology, we're able to acquire those technologies or those companies, onload those technologies or assets onto our platform where we can develop those globally, instantly increasing the valuation and value of those assets, and bring those assets and potential therapies to patients worldwide a lot faster than the companies that are developing them right now. So that's kind of like our strategy. We're essentially initially looking at technologies that will augment that we believe we can really add value to. And that basically means from a mechanism of action or technology perspective, anything cell therapy or cell and gene therapy. From an indication and a therapeutic area perspective, anything GI related. There's a lot of female patients that are suffering from fecal and urinary incontinence, so anything female related. And anything that is orphan is something that we can also handle as well. So we're looking in those areas. We've already assessed, we did initial assessments of 2 assets/companies to date. Unfortunately, those assets and companies didn't meet our criteria. And so we had to move on from those. Right now, we're assessing another one right now, and we're quite excited about this one. So hopefully, we'll be able to announce our first deal as part of the global aggregation model, either within this fiscal year or early next fiscal year. So yes, we are making project progress. I guess, should I answer this one as well?
Sure. Okay. How about how do you see the probability of achieving the 1 billion JPY in sales revenue, including in your FY2026 earnings guidance?
Yes. So just to remind everyone, Colin mentioned this briefly during the presentation. This 1 billion JPY in sales revenue is assuming an upfront payment from the partner that we choose for Japan. And I mentioned that we're talking to 3 different partners. This is something that that 1 billion JPY is something that we thought was reasonable for the potential of ICF-15 in the Japanese market. There's different ways to arrange, co-promotion deals. And, you can front load everything, you can back load everything, you can even it out. So that said, we do think that there's a potential that we can achieve the 1 billion JPY. It might be lower than that, it might be higher than that. It really comes down to the partner that we're talking to. And to be entirely honest, we won't be choosing a partner who's going to be paying us the highest upfront payment. That's not the sole criteria. That's not the sole criteria that we would use. As I mentioned earlier, there's a number of aspects that we would look at in choosing a partner. We want the partnership to be long lasting. We want the partnership to, similar to the partnership that we have with Eversana. Incentives need to be aligned, and a healthy amount of control needs to be retained in our hands. And so, we will obviously aim for achieving that 1 billion JPY, but again, that's not going to be the only criteria that we look for when choosing a partner. Okay. So the next question, I think this you would be best positioned to answer this one, so I'll ask the question. To what extent is it possible to apply your company's Myoblast technology to the regeneration of muscle tissue other than sphincter and smooth muscle?
Okay. How much time do we have? No, the short answer is yes. To give you a little bit of more color on that preceding yes. We're talking about two different types of muscle tissue here. We're talking about skeletal myoblasts that we use to help develop our striated muscles. So that's used in ICF 15, 13, and also the work that we're currently doing at Osaka University with dysphagia. We also have the cells that we use in ICF 16, which is our smooth muscle-like cells. If we're talking about some, low-hanging fruit for the skeletal myoblast and striated muscle portion, we're probably talking about the work that we're doing right now with Osaka University, and that's dysphagia, various types of dysphagia. If we're talking about the low-hanging fruit for something akin to the smooth muscle cells that we're working with, we're probably talking about something like GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease. Now, the reason why these are the low-hanging fruit is that, generally speaking, you may have noticed this already, all of the muscle types that we're talking about, whether it be the external anal sphincter that we're targeting for ICF 15, the internal anal sphincter that we're targeting for ICF 16, the urethral sphincter that we're targeting for the ICS 13 product, and the various different muscles in and around your neck area that we're targeting, we will eventually be targeting with our research collaboration efforts with Saga University. All those are relatively small muscles. And that holds true actually for the muscles that we'll need to target for GERD and also other kind of low-hanging fruit options that we have on the table. Eventually, maybe before I should go into eventually, one reason why we're targeting these smaller muscle tissues is that thus far, based upon the data that we've been able to collect to date, when we inject the cells into whatever it is that the target muscle tissue is, those cells don't migrate; they stay put. So if you're going to actually inject our cells and try to regenerate a larger muscle, you're going to need to inject a lot of times. And so right now, if we want to kind of go, say, for instance, and start targeting things like, which are theoretically possible, sports injuries and things like that, we're likely going to need to spend some time trying to figure out a better way to deliver our cells across a much larger surface area. So again, theoretically, further down the line, those types of larger muscle tissues are certainly an option, and we definitely want to take a look at that. Right now, in the short to midterm, we're talking about these smaller muscle tissues. So once again, we're talking about the incontinence that we're doing right now, dysphagia, gastroesophageal reflux disease, and other similarly type smaller muscles.
Okay.
Do we have any more?
I think that's all the questions that we have for today. Is that right?
Yep.
I just noticed that we've continually displayed the slides throughout the Q&A, and so our faces may have been a little small, but thank you for sticking with us this entire time. Since we've kind of like completed all of our Q&A, I think we can bring this to a wrap. Again, we're very excited about what lies ahead. Please stay tuned, and we can't wait to share our progress moving forward as well.
Yeah. Once again, thank you all for your time. Have a great morning, great afternoon, great evening, great night, depending upon where you're tuning in from. Once again, thank you all very much.
Thank you.